Hello, my name is Charlotte Nordmoen and I will be presenting my paper Making Space for Material Entanglements, a diffractive analysis of woodwork and the practice of making an interactive system, on behalf of my co-author Andrew McPherson. We have seen a growing shift towards more than human concerns in HCI in the last few years. On a large scale, through complex systems with multiple stakeholders, both human and non-human, and additionally, on a more internal approach through first-person perspectives of intimate entanglements with technology. We take inspiration from Ingold's correspondence between maker and material, Karen Barad's material-discursive practice, and Law and Leon's argument that realities are enacted through practice. Specifically, we apply a diffractive method for analyzing our data from visit to 4 wood workshops and a first-person account of making an interactive system. Barad proposes diffraction as a tool for analysis for attending to and responding to the effects of difference. We read the practice of woodworking and making an apparatus through one another to create these diffraction patterns, focusing on the what and how of the practices and the realities they create, rather than the outcome. I will introduce you to the woodworkers. I spent a day at each of 4 workshops interviewing and observing the woodworkers. The hand carver has 40 years of carving experience. He works predominantly with antique hand tools. He was working on a pair of ram's heads for a client when I visited. The sculptor comes from a fine art and set building background. He works with various materials, and wood is his favorite. He was finishing up some carved armrests for a bench commission during my visit. The green woodworker works in the forest he owns and manages. Greenwood refers to recently felled trees with a high moisture content and is well suited for hand tools. He demonstrated greenwood tools such as the draw knife and the shave horse, a foot-operated vise. The furniture workshop specializes in sustainably sourced British hardwood. Each of the makers is given autonomy to complete a project from start to finish. The makers were finishing up a large cabinet order when I visited alongside individual work. Now for my practice of making a research apparatus. The purpose of the apparatus is to investigate the material experience of hand carvers in fine detail. I won't go into more details about its purpose here. Instead, I will briefly explain what the apparatus is and my practice of making it. I took an exploratory approach to developing the apparatus, not knowing exactly what the resulting experience should feel like, other than creating a feeling of unfamiliarity to my research participants. The apparatus is made from plywood. The base houses electronic components such as a microprocessor and amplifier for the 4 load cells. More on those shortly. A carving platform holds down the materials for carving. 4 load cells raises this carving platform and measure the pressure put on it. A custom-built tool with an actuator inside provides haptic feedback. I will present a series of diffraction patterns as vignettes of woodworking practice and my practice of making a research apparatus, juxtaposed together to create new meaning. The green woodworker uses his body as a jig. He lifts the aids and releases it into the wood. The cut is shaped by the fibers of the tree, the shape of the tool, and his motion and energy. He tells me this specific timber is elm from Scotland. It has gone extinct in England because rising temperature creates livable conditions for the pest that threatens this species of trees. The climate emergency substantially impacts his practice, both as a green woodworker and as a forester. I bought the load cells from a random shop on Amazon. The signals are noisy and different across the 4 load cells, and they change when I tighten or loosen the screws that secure the carving platform to the apparatus. They provide a signal of changes in the strain of the wood and the metal in relation to how they're mounted. I can't make sense of this relationship. Interaction is lost on me, and I ignore it as a result. Material-discursive practices are boundary making, meaning they create a distinction between the subject and object. These boundaries are not fixed but continuously enacted. When observing the woodworkers, I felt a clear distinction between the tool, the maker, and the material, with each actor bringing their knowledge to the practice. A hand carver explained that a tool makes the cut. He complained about the wood being too spongy as he was working here. The fibers collapse when cut. The tree was most likely forced to grow quickly. These boundaries allow us to trace accountability and responsibility. I spent a long time trying to imagine other woods, or more than woods, a half-digital, half-physical material that would feel unfamiliar to the hand carvers. Then I realized that the material experience cannot be separated from the tools. Neither has an individual agency. It is only through interaction the material is known. Seeing woodworking practice as interaction reveals shifting structures. The green woodworker introduced me to the pole lathe. The balance between creating a rhythm by pedaling my foot and removing material with the tools feels awkward at first. If I think too much, it all falls apart. It's a felt sense in the body, and I experience a few moments where everything comes together. There are no clear boundaries between the gouge, the spinning material, and me, my body. For the woodworkers, it's crucial to know where the precision matters and where it doesn't. The sculptor uses digital and manual calipers depending on what he's working on. In my practice, I take precision as given. The load cell signals are noisy when I first encountered them. The noise gets filtered out, and I add a button to calibrate the signals, thereby fixing the problems. I am encouraged to make the visual feedback less linear, but I don't know how to achieve that. The particular sensors I'm working with could have offered a tacit opportunity to accomplish this. Instead, I see the quirks as problems that needs to be fixed. I'm no longer working with the material in front of me. Rather, it becomes a symbol shaped by cultural expectations of the material. Through abstractions and representation, the intangible sensor material becomes knowable to me. However, I do not pay attention to the material unfolding when it does not align with what I'm working towards. Abstractions manifest as explicit knowledge in the wood workshop, a theoretical understanding of wood species and their suitability. The furniture workshop uses as much of the timber as possible to reduce waste. Walnut, a classic wood long esteemed for its dark color, becomes a timber with light and dark color variations, knots and splits in the hands of the furniture makers. These abstractions don't intervene with their moment-by-moment response to the material in front of them. I do not work in the present moment as such. Only when the code is compiled can I interact with the system in real time. I am not sensitized to the materials I work with. I try in vain to extrapolate what I know from my background in textiles and other material-based practices. What does this all mean? We have seen that the woodworkers are situated in a larger ecology where toolmakers, clients and customers, forest management, milling practice and climate emergency impact their practice in ways that the woodworkers themselves cannot control. The woodworkers correspond with the material. Seeing their practice as material-discursive, agency is no longer attributed to an individual being, as Ingold claims. Instead, it emerges through interaction. How we draw the boundaries between subjects and objects creates accountability and responsibility in the larger ecologies. On a local level, the woodworkers are inseparable from the tools and materials they work with. Attentiveness to detail is a vital part of moving beyond representationalism to perceiving the performative unfolding of the situation or material. The materials I work with was treated as symbols and problems that needed fixing, rather than attending to what was happening in the moment, despite having a background in material-sensitive practices. Only through this diffractive analysis do these assumptions emerge. We can see new opportunities for making space for the material in our practice. noticing what is happening with the materials as we work with them, openly and curiously, while resisting the preconceptions of what should be. This requires practice and constant effort.